70 partout.
All right. Well, shall
yeah.
we get into our movie review?
Absolutely, yes. Right. Going in line with the theme for this month, which is heist. We watched and we're going to review Training Day. Believe it or not, this movie came out in 2001.
It looks really so it looks really good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this movie is it's like a fine wine or a good bourbon, just aged perfectly.
I like it, and the other thing is like because there's a lot of movies from that time frame, the early 2000s.
Mhm.
It's like you can kind of tell. Oh,
Yeah,
this
you
is
could
an
tell
early,
that it was made
like
in the early.
if I like one of my examples of this Mission Impossible 2. That is clearly
yeah.
a movie from at that time. Like it's just
Oh yeah.
it sucks. The movie sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And it just did not age well at all.
Yeah.
It's so awful. But
Absolutely.
I was like, but looking at Training Day, it's like, damn, dude, this movie is 2001. This movie, I see why this was so highly regarded. Like it looks good. It's still good. 2019. I mean, in the last week, I think I watched this movie like 3 or 4 times just to kind of make sure I wasn't missing anything, and it was such a good film. And it's not too long either. It's only about like 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah, so it's not really like too long of a film. It's very like, boom, like stuff's happening really quick.
Right. Yeah, I mean, except for like maybe like technology or fashion, like you would think this movie was made this year.
Yeah.
All right, quick synopsis of this movie. A police drama about a veteran police officer who escorts a rookie on his first day with the LAPD's tough inner-city narcotics unit. Training Day is a blistering action drama that asks the audience to decide what is necessary, what is heroic, and what crosses the line in the harrowing gray zone of fighting urban crime. Does law-abiding law enforcement come at the expense of justice and public safety? If so, do we demand safe streets at any cost?
Yeah, it was. This was one of those. Yes, there was a heist in this film, but man, it really messes with your mind. And we got a fairly star-studded cast. We have Ethan Hawke as Officer. Was it James Hoyt or?
It was Hoyt.
Yeah, Hoyt was his last name.
Jake Hoyt. Jay Hoyt,
and then you have Detective Alonzo Harris, which was played by wonderfully by Denzel Washington. You have who else was in here? You had Snoop Dogg as Blue. Dr. Dre was in it. Terry Crews. I'm trying to think of who else was in here.
Well, Terry Crews, at that time he wasn't big enough to have a speaking role, but he does play, kind of like the neighborhood hoodlum.
Yeah, he was the guy that was flipping pigeons.
Yeah.
But yeah, he.
Like Tom Bergeron in it. Scott Glenn. You had
Chris Curtis.
Yeah, Cliff Curtis. Yes. Ava Mendes in in the role that kept her in acting as the stories go.
Yeah.
Because before Training Day, she was about to she had a few bad parts or or at least parts or parts in movies that weren't received very well. She was just about to give up on acting until she landed her role in Training Day, even though it was a small part. It was what she needed. She needed to revitalize herself and keep going in acting.
So yeah, pretty star-studded cast. Was it you had one of the Trace was it the Los Treses or whatever, like the that gang that at the end of the film, the guy with a lot of the tattoos that
For you Breaking Bad fans, you recognize uh, a sniper played by Raymond Cruz.
Yes, Raymond Cruz. I can't think of his name.
I'm sorry, I forgot what his character on Breaking Bad was.
Yeah, he's been in Breaking Bad, The Closer. He was also in. He's been in some other things too.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, he's had a long career as kind of a either character actor or background actor. Usually playing the an underworld figure.
Yeah, so he's a really good actor too. So it's a pretty star-studded cast.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So how do we want to do we want to talk about certain is kind of going through it from start to beginning? Do you want to talk about certain scenes? What do we want to, how do we want to approach this? Because there's a lot to talk about with Training Day.
Right. I think I don't necessarily want to do like a play-by-play of each. Why don't we just talk about the scenes that we like the most?
Okay. I think because there's a lot of powerful scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first ones being where Hoyt gets his introduction to Alonzo, and you actually brought up this point yesterday when we were hanging out, that I thought was kind of interesting. Is you likened Alonzo to essentially a cult leader in a lot of ways, where he is always kind of shifting the goalposts, and he'll blow up at certain instances of failure to yield to his authority or command, yet also give affirmation. And it's messing with Hoyt's mind. And at the scene where he meets up at the diner, and it's talking about he's trying to read his newspaper, and Hoyt is nervous, obviously, because he wants to kind of talk about this assignment that he's
all right. He wants to make a good impression, with his new superior. But he's but Alonzo, Denzel's character, just kind of expresses annoyance at at that. He's like, oh, can I read my paper? It's like, yeah, and it's for some reason he's he's the new kid. He's the new kid, trying to make a good impression at his new school, but it just ends up irking Alonzo. And because throughout the movie, you think he's everything becomes a test to him. So or Alonzo uses the veil of tests to basically condition Hoyt to do or go along with everything he says.
Right, and then you have him, once after the introduction, he kind of gives him that affirmation, kind of lets him in a little bit as to it's into the world of being a narcotics officer. It's and saying it's forget all that stuff that you learned at the academy. That shit'll get you killed out here. And telling him to kind of get used to the streets and
wise him up, as it were.
Yeah, and he takes him on this drug stop. He's one of his what he says is one of his informants, or it could we don't even know if that's true. And they end up stealing, kind of essentially taking the drugs off of these guys. And then all of a sudden he talks about the story now a good narcotics officer should know and love narcotics.
Right.
And hell, a really good narcotics officer has narcotics in his blood, and it's like, what are you gonna smoke that? It's like, no, you are. And it's like, no, dude, I'm a cop. Like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, and it's like, and eventually it kind of that blow up again. It's like he points a gun at his head. It's like, boom, you're dead.
Yeah, that's your life.
If I was a drug dealer, you'd be dead right now. And he's like, get the fuck out of my car, get out of my unit, like go get some pussy desk job or something like that. And he's like, but Hoyt at the beginning, he's like, I'll do whatever you want to do. And he's like, fine, I'll do it. And it's throughout the whole film, it's just constant back and forth of him kind of like really screwing with Hoyt in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
A really powerful scene was the first time that we meet Alonzo's friend Roger, and that scene, like, because he's already ingested those drugs, and it's like he's really like messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But the conversation, like, he's trying to Alonzo takes him into his world, and it's like, hey, is this rookie gonna make it?
Right. So he he takes Roger. Alonzo takes Roger to like kind of suss out Hoyt, and Roger makes like the interesting observation of like, oh man, this kid's just like you at that age, or when you first started, kind of indicating that we kind of see like this kind of hard-nosed, grizzled, veteran narcotics officer, but he started off just like this optimistic new recruit.
Right, and
which is like the first kind of look behind the veil, as it were, to the character of Alonzo Harris.
The other thing that and I don't, maybe this was a throwaway line or something like that, or showing just how smart that Roger was, when he asks like, hey, what's your name? And he's like, Hoyt. Where'd you grow up? North Hollywood. Strong safety, North Hollywood High. It's like, yeah, how do you know that? It's like, and like even Alonzo's like, yeah, how the fuck did you know that? It's like, he's like, I know all the good players. And I was like, what? Why that line? Because it's like that. It seems like such a throwaway line, but I'm thinking, it's like, how did Roger know all that? Like, and it makes me wonder, like, is he like scouting potential like narcotics officers, or like or through the drug business he knows certain people?
Or it could be that Roger did some illegal sports betting, even like high school football, and if Jake was as good as we're meant to believe, then of course, then Roger would have known about him.
I didn't even think of that aspect. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Yeah, he was into like some sort of like gambling stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And from what we understand, obviously, like Roger is no longer a narcotics officer, and as far as
because I mean, I don't know if you addressed it before, but there are allusions to why we think he's a former narcotics officer later, and that happened like toward the end of the movie.
Right, and but like he gets a strange phone call, like it's like, oh man, I can't help you out, brother. You're on your own. It's like, don't ever call me. It's almost like he later on we find out that he at least at some point was he went from narcotics officer to dealer, and is supposedly like semi-retired or retired and trying to get out to the Philippines. But yeah, so like that was the one scene that was really powerful. The dialogue between them. Um, there's a constant line that's used by Alonzo throughout the film, like you want to go home or you want to go to jail. That's the always the constant like line that he throws out there, and always the talk of you know we're do you want to be a wolf or do you want to be a sheep? It's like we're guys that are out here to catch the big fish, the big whales. None of this middling fish bullshit. We're out here for whales, and the only way to catch wolves is to be a wolf yourself. So are you a wolf? Or are you a sheep? It's this constant like, but it is this very like cult like way that he goes about in talking with Hoyt and how he.
That's funny. It wasn't until right now. It's like, man, that's a lot of mixed metaphors. We bring in the big, we bring in the whales. We don't, we don't care about the little guppies, and then like say, oh yeah, to catch a wolf, you have to be a wolf. And, are you a wolf or a sheep? So it's a lot of. I'm just realizing there's a lot of mixed metaphors in this movie.
Right. These are all the things that that Alonzo talks about throughout the film, and it's a constant.
Right, but it's just but it's like, but it could just be like kind of the mind games that he's playing with Jake. To constantly like put him, keep him on edge, and then also slowly conditioning him to, just go with everything that he says. Like even when he, I think I might be I might be jumping ahead with this. For me, I think one of my favorite scenes is, when they're making when after they do the heist basically. And it's after everything, and then Alonzo has like that kind of heart to heart with Jake. That's probably one of my favorite scenes. Because was that
one in the car after the heist?
Yeah, after the heist. Because it feels like it's like the one time that Alonzo's being real with him.
Right.
But I think if you're a little bit more discerning, I think it might also be just another kind of manipulation tactic.
Yeah, and I think it kind of is, because before Hoyt gets in the car, he's seen Alonzo's talking to somebody, and it's like talking about like make sure the bathtub's cleaned out and stuff. We obviously at the time we don't know what that means until it pays off a little bit later, and so that whole thing could have just been another way for Alonzo to kind of draw him in and let his guard down.
Exactly.
Because Hoyt after the whole thing was on edge, like on edge where I gotta be, it's but so I think it was just Alonzo saw that, because he also like keeps talking about how Hoyt's like he's got the magic eye. He's whether maybe that wasn't bullshit. Like he saw that Hoyt was actually a pretty smart guy, and that he can handle himself, and like it's when he's pushed to the razor's edge, he's very calculating, just like Alonzo is. So, but he's still kind of fresh. So he's trying to kind of relax him and say, hey, it's like, so that whole conversation was a way to kind of get him back off of his guard to like where he could be, where Alonzo could be more in control of the situation.
Right.
What was the thing? The other thing I was wondering too, that and I couldn't get a read of what it said, but he on the freeway scene between him and between Alonzo and Hoyt, he shows him his tattoo, and it's like, you want to get your ink, or do you want to go help him out? It's showing some highway patrolman helping change a flat tire, and I couldn't read what the tattoo said. I don't know if you were able to catch a glimpse of what
I missed
said
it too.
And I couldn't find it, anybody saying what was actually on the tattoo itself. It was like kind of a, but I assumed it was whatever the symbol was for Alonzo's unit. So I wasn't sure if there was any sort of significance to what the tattoo, what was said on the tattoo, or like what there was. But to be honest, like every scene that Denzel was in, which was he was just the dialogue, the way that he spoke, the way that he did things, it was brilliant dialogue. And it wasn't just Jake Hoyt being manipulated with. I felt like I was being manipulated with the entire film. Like Denzel was, Alonzo Harris was messing with my mind as I'm watching this movie, because the stuff that he's saying makes sense. Being in the, being in the military, like, there is certain, basic training that we go through, and there's certain things that we, learn to do things, the quote unquote the right way. But as you get into an actual command, sometimes those things don't work. It's kind of like you kind of have to chuck it out the door and face reality. And sometimes the reality is much murkier and dirty than you'd like it to be. And so it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense that he's kind of telling Hoyt how it is. But the whole time, like, yeah, it's like yeah, that makes sense. But then, like, man, you're really like blurring that line between being a policeman and being kind of a one of the gangsters, one of the drug dealers that are out there. And he must have been like with Alonzo must have had like such an iron fist control of those neighborhoods, because even like that area where he was at with his mistress, they're like, man, I hate that guy. Like, it's like, I'm tired of his shit.
Right.
And it's like, but they couldn't do anything about
it. So it's right. So it's not that that people around him respect him; it's that they fear him.
Yeah, it's more.
And so it's like they only have and the people around him, or like the people that he can manipulate, only have he only has their loyalty up until a certain point.
Right.
Just really fast. The tattoo said, "Death is certain, life is not."
Oh, that makes that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. Okay. Why don't we? Because I do want to talk about this. Let's talk about the theory of the Sandman. Because you were telling me how you were doing some research and you haven't been able to find any sort of Reddit thread or whatever that talks about the Sandman.
No, yeah, no one's talking about the Sandman, and Snoop Dogg plays a character named Blue. He's a wheelchair-bound drug dealer who sells crack. And through his advanced interrogation techniques, Alonzo finds out that he's working for a guy named Sandman. And from the information that is given to Alonzo, he said that the Sandman is goes by the name of something or other, and he's given an address of where the Sandman is supposedly located. Now the thing is, we technically don't know who was on the other line. We're just given the name of Bob, but who the hell knows who that is? And the fact is, No, so there's no like, oh, he's not actually, we don't even know if he's talking to actual policemen, if he's talking to just one of his contacts, what have you. So he just goes to this random house, and that's supposedly the Sandman's home, because the Sandman is supposed to be in prison. He ends up uh, grabbing money out of um, one of the bedrooms in this house, and it and then they end up getting into a altercation with the gang members in that area, and they go to what are known as the Three Wise Men, which are corrupt police officials, and he is able to acquire an actual warrant to enter into. We don't actually. We're assuming that maybe it's for something with the Sandman. We don't really know, but he's given an address of where he gets a warrant. He needs going to serve it at this place. Turns out the place that they're going back to is Roger's house, which is supposedly his friend and mentor. So
Well, here's an interesting thing that I don't know if you noticed, but after he goes visit the wise men and then he gets the warrant and he rounds up his posse. I don't know if this is a inconsistency. I don't know if there's an inconsistency in the story, but Alonzo does say, "Oh, we got the warrant thanks to the Sandman." And so I'm thinking, or what I'm thinking is, because our theory is that the Sandman is Roger.
yeah, that's our theory.
Alonzo's friend and possibly former, or most likely former narcotics agent. But at the meeting on the rooftop with the rest of the team, he does say, "Oh, we got the warrant thanks to the Sandman." And I'm thinking, because if Roger's a Sandman, then that means he's active again, even though he's supposedly supposed to be retired, not just as a narcotics officer, but also as a drug dealer.
Right. And okay, yeah. So I do remember that now that you're mentioning it. But
Yeah.
so that was our theory, is that no, the Sandman wasn't just some other person they're going after. It's actually Roger. And the reason, yes, Alonzo and Roger are friends, but he's always talking about the big whale, the big fish. And the Sandman is someone that is a huge fish. Like that's a target. And for a while, it appeared that he was, kind of retired and, getting ready to get out of Dodge. All right, cool. Like, and as soon as he hears that, he is, I'm sure he suspected that he was on, doing business again.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of given that illusion when Roger gets that call in his house.
Right.
And the fact that Blue talks about that it's the Sandman that he works for. So, and since Alonzo knows that Roger is the Sandman, he knows who he is, and he knows his secrets. He's like, all right, when he left him alone, but as soon as he found out that he was in business again, it's like all bets are off. Like, I'm getting mine, and that's where we get the actual heist.
Right. Because that scene where he goes to to talk to the three wise men, and that's just the code that he uses to describe three higher ups within either the Los Angeles City government or the LAPD. But he talks about how well, first, the wise men talk about Alonzo's troubles, because I guess he was in Vegas and he killed a Russian mob associate, and so the Russians are out for his blood, but they gave him time to hey, if you give us money, then we'll call off the hit. And so this whole movie is we think is basically his attempt to scrounge enough money and save his life. but and so his visit to the wise men is basically getting permission to take out Roger, aka Sandman, because through the character through Snoop Dogg's character, it's been revealed that he's active again, and so now he's fair game, and so the wise men give their blessing, and and issue the warrant. To go in and basically steal from Roger, aka Sandman.
Yeah, and it's funny because none of the Reddit threads I've seen, none of the YouTube videos I watched, none of it talks about actually there's no actual even discussion about the Sandman whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of those hidden fan theories as I think Roger was the Sandman. And Alonzo, well, although yes, he is very corrupt, I think he's still he is being real in the fact that he does go after the big scores, the big fish, to take them off the street. Because I think the 1 ounce of truth that he did say is I watched that guy, deal with
deal to kids.
10 years dealing to kids and whatnot, and I think that did bug him a little bit. But as far as but he blurred the line so much. It's we'll never know. It's
it's kind of like in literature it's called even in I think in law it's called the what is it? Unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And so, all the stuff that Alonzo says, it should be highly, scrutinized, and you should be dubious of.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, there was a lot of Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington really played off each other really well. The chemistry was great between those two characters. And the other thing that we don't realize too is that at the end of the film, when Jake pulls up to his house, this is all happening during the same day. He has the money and stuff with him that he took from Alonzo, making me think that he is kind of becoming Alonzo-like in his own sense. Because if it was, I think, in my thinking is maybe because he thought okay, well, the wise men, these are the higher ups that he has to deal with anyways, and I think that it's where am I going to go with this? It's because Alonso talks about it's not what you know, it's what you can prove, and really Jake has no proof of much of anything else. I mean, Alonso's crew's not going to help him. The wise men aren't going to help him. So maybe he figures I'm just going to keep the money, and I think
or maybe he's going to keep the money as kind of sort of Damocles over their heads.
That could be too.
Right, and so that's why, and that way he can kind of transfer back to his post in the valley and just be the regular beat cop, and so so the crew and so Alonzo's team and also the wise men don't bother him. It's hey, I got this evidence right here, this is my evidence. You want to go, he kind of, so he could kind of turn it on them. It's this is my evidence. You want to go home or you want to go to jail?
That could be the case. I actually think he's becoming a type of Alonzo himself, where he's not as corrupt, but that's kind of this is his first step into.
Possibly, I mean, because we're kind of meant to think that he does kind of go unscathed, because it's not him that kills Alonzo, but then it's also because at the end, the quote unquote villagers kind of rebel against the king, and the gang member is the one that holds the gun on Alonzo, so Jake could walk out of there.
Yeah, and they kick him out of that community.
Yeah, so he the king is basically dethroned, but then Jake doesn't have the stain of the sin, basically the stain of sin of killing Alonzo, so he could keep his soul essentially. And that's what I took away from that last scene. But also, I also thought it was very poetic when Alonzo was threatening Jake, by kind of describing his death in the way that a news anchor or news reporter might um, retell or relay the information. But at the end, when Alonzo died, that's how you hear the voiceover of like a news anchor or reporter talking about Alonzo in a similar fashion.
Yeah.
A narcotics officer was murdered while serving a very high risk warrant. He's survived by his wife and 4 sons, and that was like the same kind of threat that Alonzo was giving to Jake when he wouldn't kill Roger.
Yeah, that's right. It was kind of poetic justice in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's our kind of like our big like fan theory is that the Sandman was actually Roger, and we might. And here's the thing: is we might actually get some more information about that because there's news that came out this month that they are talking about doing a Training Day prequel, talking about Alonzo's younger days as a narcotics officer. So we might learn more about Roger and like what exactly happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll be interesting.
Word.
Any other last minute thoughts, Andy, about the film?
No, I'm just glad that we got to talk about the Sandman theory because I like you, I was kind of looking it up because I was interested about for some reason the Sandman, like this time around when I was watching it, the Sandman really like stuck out to me, and it seemed like one of those like kind of like those loose threads that the filmmakers leave. But I was like, well, maybe it's not a loose thread, and so I started to think about it. I was really starting to think about the movie and everything that they show us, because we can only go off of what they showed us, and so and then it got me thinking. I was like, what if Roger's the Sandman?
Yeah, well, and like once, because you're the one that kind of like brought that up, and then I watched it. I watched it a couple more times after that, kind of specifically like looking for those clues, and I actually think that is the actual truth. I think I think you were right in doing that, and then once looking up that information, no one's talking about that either. So I think this is actually our original fan theory that we've created for Film Training Day.
We're contributing to the zeitgeist.
Patent pending.
Yeah, patent pending. This is Circle of Jerks Nocturnal Transmission's original theory on Training Day.
November 19th, 2019. So anything you hear after this about Sandman, it's.
Yeah, and hey, writers, of the prequel movie, hey, if you need some help, we're available.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into let's give our rating, and let's wrap this bitch up.
You go first, Andy.
All right, I'm gonna give this a 4.
Ooh, you're gonna give it a 4, really?
I'm gonna give it a 4.
Well, what's your reasoning behind the 4?
4. I mean, they're. It's funny because a lot of times when I review stuff or when I ding a movie is purely for like technical reasons. And in this, I guess this is no different. Some of the editing was a little weird for me. As much as I enjoyed the story, I do kind of see some elements as kind of plot holes, or maybe like that they these were like kind of like thematic like loose ends that they never really tied in, and then so our theories are basically our own like conjecture and suppositions, as opposed to like being able to be taken from like direct evidence. So I'm kind of dinging them on that, even though I still really like this movie. These are just like technical things.
I'm going a little bit higher than you. I'm giving it a 4.5.
Okay.
I think, yeah, like I said, some of those same like edits that you're talking about. Yeah, it is. There's times where it's like I feel like we're missing something at this
Mm-hmm.
point, or
Right.
something was cut out that we maybe needed.
Mm.
Um, but what I thought was, yeah, like I said, the dialogue is a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
I think Denzel won the Oscar for this, didn't he? Like he won an
Right.
Oscar for best, yeah, deservedly so.
Mm.
Um, Something else that was cool is like it was the majority of the film was filmed locally within Los Angeles in these gang infested territories,
Mm-hmm.
and which was kind of a big deal at the time, like because
Right.
these were
Yeah, I read into it, and like I think a lot of it was pushed from like Denzel as well. That it was important that in reality, a lot of the filming locations, were gang territories and just like high, violence, high crime areas. But oh yeah, not just Denzel, but then also the people in the communities wanted, to be a part of this. And so like, they had
yeah.
like, neighborhood council meetings, and it's like, yes, we want you to film here. We promise, we'll make it, it'll be safe. And yeah, it was really a community effort, which I appreciate.
Right. So it was so I thought that was kind of like really cool that they did something like that. It wasn't just some sound studio that they were
Right.
filming it, but it was
Yeah, or
actually
like, or a nicer neighborhood dressed down to play, like
yeah,
the
it
crime
wasn't
ridden areas.
it wasn't like the Universal backlot like with
Right, 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 right.
Wisteria Lane style.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
no, it was actually in the heart of really the gritty LA, which
Yeah,
is
I mean, not to ding them too much, but like in the literal heart of darkness of LA.
yeah. So that's why I give some points on that. But yeah, this is just a masterpiece of dialogue. I mean, it's
Mm.
not really a ton of action, but it's all about like the dialogue, and
Right,
like I
it's all
said,
about the psychology of
and I felt like Alonzo Harris was messing with my mind, not just Jake Hoyt, because you're always questioning like, is he telling the truth here? Is he being is he where is the truth? Where is the lie? And you're always like trying to figure that out throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
So 4.5 for me.
Foreign. All right.